Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 Board of Education meeting. We are calling the meeting to order and it is 7:09 p.m. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. A reading of meeting notice. This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the open meeting session that the Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its annual reorganization meeting held on January 3rd, 2023. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Verona Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the Star Ledger, posted within the Township of Verona and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public via the Board of Education website. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call attendance.
Sure. Mr. Walker? Present. Mrs. Frizella?
Here.
Mrs. Ferrara?
Here.
Mrs. Prisco?
Here.
Mrs. Freshy?
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to our agenda. Up first would be Superintendent Report by Mrs. DiGiuseppe.
We're on spring break. There's not really much that happened since my last superintendent report. I am waiting on the demographer to give me an update. I guess I should report out that I have begun my evaluation, the self-evaluation portion of that at New Jersey school boards. And for those that have kind of had the training, I think you did the online training, right?
No, I think we both went.
Oh, you both did? Okay. Okay. It's an arduous process, so I should be done probably by the third week in April, and then we can, or definitely by the first week in May. So that's that is going to be completed, and we are looking at the hiring needs for next year. We just completed, as you know, our non-tenure review process, and we will be posting in April for those positions where we have retirements or openings. And we'd like to get that up by April 15th and beat the rush. Most districts try to get it in there by May 15th. If we thought we'd get in there early, we get a better group of staff members. We do have some maternity leaves that we're going to be filling. We have an extended, you'll see on the agenda tonight, an extended leave of absence for one of our teachers at FN Brown. So we'll need to take a look at that position. And I just need to say, I can't believe how fast this year went by. It's really gone crazy. So we are actually preparing for what takes place in the summer, which is getting the Splash program up and running, notifying parents of students that are eligible to take part in Splash. Our enrichment program over the summer is getting applications. We're looking at enrollment numbers and where we need to increase a section, where we need to decrease a section. I'll be meeting with the elementary principals next week about we do have some movement that has to happen because we have an increase in sections in one school and we have a decrease in sections in another. And we just have to agree upon what staff member is going to move into those roles. So all good conversations, but hard conversations because no one wants to change a school. So, but the fact that we have great teachers to choose from to say we need your services over here and we'd love you to do that, that's a happy problem. And that's what I have for tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. DiGiuseppe? Thank you. Next up will be our student representative report by Reese Shahado.
Oh yeah, spring break, it's a little quiet right now. So with final strategic planning coming up on the horizon on the 27th, gonna again be putting it out with announcement, this time more flyers, more social media posts, putting a link up on Google Classroom, just gonna try and get the word out again. And yeah, so congratulations to the DECA Club. They have their field trip to Orlando on April 22nd. So
Are they
that's,
still going?
I believe so. I'll have to double check on that.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure. I asked the same question whether they were going and they weren't sure. So they might not, they may have bailed on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
double check on that one.
thank you.
Yeah, last week, some of the marketing classes took a field trip to MetLife Arena, met with professionals to discuss careers in sports marketing and management, took a tour of the stadium. And congratulations to the Spotlight players for receiving 2 nominations to the Montclair Theater Night Awards. One for outstanding achievement by an acting ensemble of a play with elevated language. That is a heck of a title for Romeo and Juliet. That's a full cast nomination. And another for outstanding achievement in student stage management by Stephanie Zamani in the same play. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Does
you.
anyone have anything they would like to ask or question?
I do,
Perfect.
Reese, when you're trying to encourage your fellow classmates to attend strategic planning, so what's the pushback? Is there one thing or is there anything we can do as a board, or I can do as a superintendent, or Mr. Cogdill or Mr. Merkler can do as building administrators to encourage kids to be a part of it? They got one more shot.
Okay, so when I talk to kids, it's usually like, oh, it's a school night, just like getting a ride to and back. It's oh, I got like sports, I got band, I got whatever that night, you know. So
Extended kids.
yeah, just like a lot of other stuff on the plate is generally just it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Very much, Reese. Next up will be committee reports. We'll go with athletics first. Want me to take it, Mr. Waka? Okay, thank you. So our athletics committee met on April 6th, and we met with our athletic director as well with our superintendent and Mr. Waka and I. Spring sports are up and running. Everything is going well. I don't see any teams are winning. She will come to our meeting and update us at the end of the spring sports. We also discussed field and building usage again. That's a topic that we're working on also in finance about getting a different tier maybe listed
Yeah,
and
and
just
in policy.
and a policy,
Mhm.
yes. So on possibly right now, there's a tentative date, which is on April 28th for the GLI, which is the Girls Learn International. It will be a basketball game between students and staff that will take place hopefully on April 28th. And it's the Girls Learn International. It empowers and educates middle school and high school students to advocate for human rights, equality, universal education in the US and around the world. So last year, the funds that they made for that, they donated that back to domestic violence. So I'm not sure where the funds will go this year, but that hopefully will take place on April 28th. At our HBW track, there was unfortunately damage to our track. There was a hole in the backside of the track that is going to limit lane 1 being used on the track until that gets repaired. I know they were getting some pricing and quotes of getting that fixed. So right now, only lanes 2 through 6 could be used. On to personnel. They are in the first round of girls basketball head coach interviews for that. And they're also, Mrs. Pomerezi is also looking for a boys cross country, head cross country coach, JV volleyball, and a JV cheer. Those have been posted. And I would also just like to thank Mrs. Pomerezi for all her work that she does, because she's always at all the sporting events, cheering on all the kids. And so I would like to give her a shout out and thank her for all her hard work and dedication to the district. And that's all I have. I think, did I miss anything, Mr. Waka? No. Any questions?
I just have a, I was gonna say, just real quick, one of the conversations that was going on in the past with
with athletics was the Positive Coaching Alliance. I think there were a couple of sessions that were
Yeah,
still
she-
available to us.
There are sessions, there's one or two that are still available to us. It's just organizing it and getting them here. They were backed up because they owed a lot of schools because of pandemic. But I'll ask Mrs. Pomerosi to give a shout out to them again.
I just have a
Thank you.
question about the track. Do we
Yeah.
know, was that just like it wore out or was that like damage? Like,
There's some speculation, but I don't think there's any substantive facts right now, but there's speculation. So hopefully we'll figure out exactly what happened.
Thank you. Yes, yes, it is. And did governance and policy get to meet? Oh, okay, because that was on the agenda. Okay, so
Yeah.
no other committees met? All right. So now I will open up the podium for public comments on agenda action items only. So if there's any item that we're voting on, now please come up to the podium and state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Seeing none, we will go on to discussion items. Does anyone have any items or anything they would like to mention?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go first.
So I'm not sure if anyone had an opportunity. I just want to circle back to the survey that's going to be given next week, I think it is. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to look through it. So I want to just make sure that I'm understanding, because I know it's a sample,
Right.
right? It seems like there are a lot of questions. Are those questions just possibilities that will be asked, or is that the actual?
So that's a good question. Marissa Ackerman is the one that's taking the lead on that. So she's working directly with Rutgers.
Okay,
She's away.
okay,
I think she's away. I will reach out to her
okay.
and get the answer to that. I went through it today. There are a lot. I think it didn't jump out to me as being a lot because the survey that we used in my former district was actually much more involved and longer.
Okay,
So it didn't appear like it was too much. But there's a lot of,
like subcategories.
yeah, there's a
that-
lot of
that break down.
subcategories. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was one thing that I noticed. And then also, in general, I wonder if, a range of 6 through 12 is the most appropriate way to kind of push that survey out, because I just know, a 6th grader and an 11th grader they're worlds apart in, they're developmentally and probably even what they're experiencing and going through. And again, just looking through some of the questions, I think that some of them are really heavy and long for particularly our middle schoolers.
I can
That
send
was-
it. I don't know that all the board members have them. If you don't have kids in the, you may not. I'll
Okay.
send them out to you. I'll
Okay,
send them to the board members
Okay.
as well. Yeah.
That's really it. I think it's something that we should look at.
Was there a specific category that you felt was heavier than?
There wasn't any one specific thing. I just think that a lot of them are, it's one question and then it's flushed out with, 4 or 5 sub questions. And a lot of the language is repetitive. And I think that, for a younger child, answering that same question over and over again, my worry is that it can cause more of confusion or, a feeling of uncertainty when answering those same questions over and over
Yeah,
at a
I
younger age.
I do know why they do that though. That's the way they cross validate.
Right.
Right.
I know. I know, middle schools is a tough time, transitionally. There's a lot of things that are happening and I just don't want to over question our kids.
Okay. So yeah, I'll send
Just
it out
something to
to everyone so you can take a look at it. And I don't know that we can cut down the number of questions. So I don't know whether we have to take the survey in entirety. We used Panorama in my former district, and while they would allow you to take out some of the questions, what resulting was that you didn't get any norming because it changed the way, if it's now this is, I don't know that this is, I know this is a New Jersey initiative. I don't know whether these questions are national, but you wouldn't get the New Jersey norming. But those are questions I can ask.
Ms. Rosella, you have the question?
No, and I just wanted to, the HBW had their play this past weekend.
I
It
missed
was adorable. It was great. All the kids were fantastic. They worked really hard. The teachers and the staff that worked with them. I don't know how Mr. Mikulowski and Miss Albano do it because I was exhausted at the end. So that they did 4 shows with 2 different casts. There was over 100 kids that participated between stage crew and cast and everything. The art club did the set and our classes did the sets. So it was really a wonderful experience for, I think, all the kids that were involved and the community. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them because it was great. And my kid was Plankton in the Atlantic
Nice.
cast. So she was very excited.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned it, but I didn't get to see it. It was the one thing I really looked forward to seeing, and I was away, so I couldn't, but I did speak to Mr. Galbachek, who said it was wonderful.
It definitely was. I was glad I got there on that Saturday afternoon and it was really, the kids were great. They really were. It was really fun to watch and see. And like you said, 100 students and the time and effort that went into it. So it was a great show. So thank you to everyone. Anyone else have anything else to comment
Just,
on?
I don't have the date in front of me. You might know, Pam, though, but the VFE is coming up.
It is coming up.
And I just wanted to, put that out to the
Yes,
community
I-
as well. I'm looking for it in my emails.
um,
Let me look
Yeah.
on my,
It's a Friday.
I want to say May 10th.
I think that might be the county one.
Oh, no, that's the county
It
meeting.
might be that Friday, the 12th.
Yeah, I think it is Friday the 12th. And that's the VFE, and they do the Teachers of the Year. They recognize a lot of our teachers and the work that they
And they're doing
do.
The nurses too. I
Yeah,
said,
because I think
so
they skipped the
2020,
year, yep,
2022.
May
from the
what?
pandemic.
Okay, so we wouldn't have gotten an invitation yet.
Yeah, I saw it out on social media and I meant to screenshot it and I did not. But I know it's coming up and VFE does a lot of, amazing things for the school district. They do large fundraisers and then the teachers in the district are able to apply for grants. So the money that's donated comes directly back to our students and our schools. So they're a great organization to support.
Thank you for mentioning that. Anyone else, have anything else?
Yes, it was May 12th.
May 12th. Okay, so now we're going to. say, I'm going to need a motion to approve resolution number 1. Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by Mrs. Priscilla. All in favor? Oh, wait, any
No, it's a roll
discussion?
call.
Any discussion? Yep.
Discussion,
Any
yeah.
discussion? Yeah. No. Mr. Cruz, can you please call roll call?
Sure. Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar, Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
and Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to personnel, I need a motion to approve resolutions. Bear with me. 1 to 1.5.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Waka, seconded by
Second.
Mrs. Freshy. Any discussion? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
thank you.
Excited to see all those substitute teachers on there.
Mhm.
I need a motion to education. I need a motion to approve resolutions 1 to 3.1. So moved. Motion by Mrs. Ferrara, seconded by, I will second that. Any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call the roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
thank you. On to special education. I need a motion, please, to approve resolutions 1-1.2.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded
I'll
by
second.
Mrs. Rosella. Any discussion? Mr. Cruz, if you could call the roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosal,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
thank you. Next up is athletics and co-curricular. I need a motion to approve resolutions 1-1.2.
Moved.
Motion by Mr. Waka, seconded by Mrs. Ferrara. Any discussion? I actually have a question. Is that field trip, wasn't that taken off the 1.1, the French Mandarin headquarters? Is that
Ye-
going to be coming off?
No, that
No.
wasn't the one. It was, let me look at the
Okay,
agenda.
that's okay. I just knew we took one off. and I
You
thought
know,
it
it's
was-
not that one.
It's not that one. It's just.
Oh, but it's, it was the choir at Lincoln Center,
Okay.
St. John Apostles Church.
Okay.
It's on here, though.
Oh, okay, that's one.
So should
knew-
we remove that? Or are we going to
You
change
can
that
approve it, they
resolution?
don't have to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can approve it, they don't
Okay.
have to go.
I remember we talked about
Yeah.
it. That's fine. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. If you could call a roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
thank you. On to finance. I need a motion, please, to approve resolutions 1-5.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by Mrs. Frizella.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Mr. Cruz, if you could call a roll.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosal,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
thank you. On to governance and policy. I need a motion, please, to approve resolutions number 1.
So before you do that, let me explain, you did not get a report from me. I apologize about that, but there was nothing other than preliminary determinations. There was nothing investigated.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by Mrs. Ferrara. Any discussion items on discussion? Mr. Cruz, if you could call roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosal,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried.
thank you.
I found the VFI information, just so we have it clear. So Friday, May 12th at 7:30 PM. It's $65 per person. There'll be food, refreshments, wine and beer. And it is honoring Verona's educators and their nurses. So like I said, so May 12th, if people are able to go, it's out on social media. I'm sure they'll put out a wider spread invitation, just to keep in mind.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Freshy, for that. And if there's anyone from the public that would like to come up to the podium, please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes. Seeing none. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting will be April 25th with confidential at 6 PM and 7 PM for the public in the library, Learning Commons. It is now 7:32 and I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mrs. Freshy. Seconded by Mrs. Frizella. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is the fastest.